A billionaire's son was given just 3 months to live, until a quiet maid stepped in and changed everything. But when her dark past surfaced, no one was prepared for the truth. What did she risk? And what secret could bring down the powerful? Stay with us. This is a story of love, betrayal, and the fight for redemption that will leave you in tears. Before we begin this powerful story, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss our life-changing content. Like and share the channel to support our mission. At Twisting Tales, every story is more than just entertainment. It carries a meaningful message, filled with emotion, wisdom, and inspiration. Join us on this journey of growth, compassion, and transformation. Billionaire's son had only 3 months to live. What the maid did next left everyone in tears. They say money can buy anything. I used to believe that. Until the day my world shattered, and all the wealth in my hands turned into dust. My name is Nathaniel Grant.
CEO. Billionaire. Father.
I built empires from ashes. But I could not save my own son.
He was 5.
His name was Elijah.
Bright eyes. Mischievous smile.
A laugh that made the coldest walls melt.
Then one morning, he collapsed.
Doctors flooded the room. Machines beeped like alarms from hell. Words hit me like bullets. Terminal. Neurological degeneration.
3 months.
7 specialists. 1 verdict. There is nothing more we can do. I signed blank checks. I flew in experts from across oceans. Every evening, I would sit by his hospital bed, pretending to read him fairy tales, while silently falling apart. Behind my tailored suit, behind the empire I ruled, I was crumbling. I screamed at God,
at life, at myself.
Where had I gone wrong?
Why my son? And then she arrived.
Her name was Miriam.
A maid. Quiet. Graceful.
Wore plain clothes and kept her eyes down. I barely noticed her at first. She was hired through the agency to help with household chores during Elijah's illness. But it was the way Elijah looked at her that changed everything. He smiled again when she walked in. He laughed again when she told him stories. He asked for her instead of me when the nightmares came.
Jealousy? Shame? I felt both. I was his father.
Yet I was losing him to a maid. One evening, I found them in the garden. She was holding him close, whispering softly. Elijah, she said, your body is tired. But your spirit, it is stronger than anyone knows.
I stepped forward.
What are you telling my son?
I asked, coldly. She looked up, calm, brave.
I am telling him the truth, she replied. That even when medicine fails, love fights on. I laughed bitterly. You think love will cure a terminal illness?
She did not flinch.
I think love can awaken what fear has silenced.
Her words haunted me that night.
In the sterile corridors of the hospital. In the silence of Elijah's shallow breaths. And in the mirror, where a broken man stared back at me.
Days passed. Elijah's condition worsened. I prepared for the end.
But Miriam, she refused to give up. Every morning, she sat by him,
massaged his hands,
sang songs in a language I did not understand.
She brought herbs, natural oils,
steam inhalation,
gentle exercises.
I was furious. This is not science. This is superstition. She looked me in the eye. Science has done its part. Now let his soul do the rest. Then one day, a miracle. Elijah moved his toes. Then his fingers. The doctors were stunned.
Tests were rerun. Numbers changed.
The degeneration had paused. Something was happening. Miriam never asked for credit. She only said, "Sometimes, healing does not begin in the body. It begins in the heart." And I, the man who believed in figures and facts, began to believe in something else.
In faith. In love. In her. I watched her.
The gentleness with which she touched pain.
The patience in her silence.
The fire behind her quiet eyes. She was more than a maid. She was the force I never knew I needed. She taught me how to hold my son, not like a project, but like a prayer. She taught me how to cry,
and how to be human again.
But I was yet to learn who she truly was. And when I did, it would shake everything I thought I knew about my life, my success, and my soul. I was walking past the guest quarters one evening. Her door was slightly ajar. Inside, I saw her kneeling beside a worn leather suitcase. She was reading an old, folded letter.
I knocked.
She stood quickly, eyes red, hands trembling.
"I apologize," I said.
"I did not mean to intrude."
She nodded.
"It is all right, Mr. Grant."
But I saw the pain.
Not just sadness, a deep buried wound. "Miriam," I asked gently, "who are you?" She smiled faintly. "Someone who once believed she was cursed to bring death, until your son taught me I could carry light again."
I sat down. "Tell me." She hesitated.
Then, like a dam breaking, she opened her heart. "I was once a pediatric nurse. In another life. There was a little boy. His name was Jacob. He was 5, just like Elijah."
I felt a chill. He came in with a fever.
"Routine, nothing serious," they said.
Her hands clenched.
But a misdiagnosis, a delay, and within 48 hours he was gone. She stared at her palms as if still seeing his tiny fingers there.
I blamed myself. I left everything. Medicine. Family. My name. My throat tightened.
"That was not your fault," I whispered.
She looked up.
"But I believed it was.
Until Elijah.
Until you let me stay."
Tears filled my eyes. I had judged her. Dismissed her.
Called her just the maid. But she was a healer in exile. A woman carrying invisible scars. And yet, she had chosen to love again. To fight for a boy who was not hers. To bring him back from the edge, and me with him. From that moment, everything changed. Not just in how I saw her, but how I saw the world. Every morning, we sat by Elijah together. We learned his breathing patterns. We mapped his fears. We celebrated every flicker of progress. One afternoon, he gripped my finger.
Hard.
"Daddy," he said, "Mimi says I am strong now."
I looked at her.
She smiled softly. And I realized, strength was never about muscles or money. It was love that rebuilt my son. It was love that saved me from myself. And it was love that now burned in my chest for her. But just as I dared to believe in happiness again, an unexpected visitor arrived at the gates. A woman in a navy blue coat. Stern eyes. Clipboard in hand. "I am here," she announced, "for Miss Miriam Clark." I froze. Miriam stepped forward. Her face went pale. "Please," she whispered, "not now." The woman ignored her plea. "You were reported, Miriam. Practicing unauthorized medicine. Violating court orders. Hiding your identity." I stepped between them. "She saved my son," I said, voice rising. "She broke the law," the woman snapped. Miriam placed a hand on my arm. "It is all right, Nathaniel," she said gently. But her eyes were full of silent terror. She turned to Elijah, kissed his forehead. And then, she walked away. No tears. No words. Just quiet dignity. like a candle letting itself be extinguished, so others could have light.
I stood frozen. My son reached for her. "Mimi," he cried out. But she was gone. Taken.
Because she had dared to heal. Because she had loved too much.
And now, I had to fight. For her. For justice.
For the truth to rise above laws written without hearts.
I did not sleep that night.
I sat beside Elijah, holding his tiny hand, watching the moonlight stretch across the hardwood floor like a quiet witness to my thoughts. He asked again, barely awake, "Where is Mimi?"
I swallowed hard. "She will be back, son."
"I promise you that." But promises felt hollow when I did not even know where they had taken her. The next morning, I called my legal team. I demanded answers. I pulled strings, called in favors, and opened sealed records.
Piece by piece, the truth emerged.
Miriam had been scapegoated. After Jacob's death, the hospital board, desperate to protect their own, blamed her. An internal investigation had been rushed.
Vital testimony buried.
They had revoked her license. And she, heartbroken and ashamed, had disappeared from public view. But what they could not erase was her knowledge.
Her heart. Her gift.
And they could never erase what she had done for Elijah. She had brought back my son when billion-dollar facilities failed. When renowned physicians shrugged their shoulders. I stared at the photographs of her in those old reports. She looked the same, but her eyes. Back then, they held fire. Now, they carried wisdom.
And pain. And grace.
I realized something deeper in that moment. I was not just trying to free her for Elijah's sake. I needed to stand for her.
Because no one else had. Because I loved her.
Because her soul had become the mirror in which I saw the man I wanted to be. That night, I walked into the press conference myself. I stood before the cameras. Before the microphones. Before the world. And I spoke the truth. Not the polished, rehearsed truth of a CEO. But the raw, trembling truth of a father, and a man transformed. "I am Nathaniel Grant," I began. "My son was dying. 7 doctors gave him 3 months. 1 woman gave him life. I told them about Miriam. I told them what she risked.
What she carried.
And how she healed not only a child, but a broken man."
There were gasps. Silence. Tears. And then, applause. Not for me. But for her.
The media storm exploded. Lawyers flooded my phone. Investigations reopened. The board of that hospital, now under scrutiny. And somewhere in a cold holding cell, I hoped she heard it all. The world had turned its back on her once. It would not do so again. And I would not rest, not until she was free. But as the legal battle began to unfold, and old enemies began to circle in quiet halls of power, I received a letter.
No return address.
Just my name, written in delicate handwriting I would never forget. Inside was a single sentence. "If they find out who I really am, you and Elijah may be in danger." My hands shook. What was she hiding? What truth was still buried? And what darkness had she taken upon herself, just to protect us? I read the sentence again, over and over. Each time, it hit harder. "If they find out who I really am, you and Elijah may be in danger." I stared at the ink until the letters blurred. What danger? Who was they? I had thought I knew everything about her, but now, it felt like I was holding only fragments of a much deeper story. I pressed the letter to my chest. The woman who had brought my son back from the edge was now warning me from the shadows. I knew one thing: she had never lied to me. So if she was protecting us now, it meant something real, something terrifying, was coming. I went straight to the private investigator I kept on retainer. A former intelligence officer.
Trusted. Silent. Ruthless.
I gave him the letter. He scanned it, then looked up.
"Do you trust her?" he asked. "With my life," I said. He nodded.
"Then we find out what she is running from, and we end it." He started with public records, but the trail was faint. Redacted files. Sealed court transcripts. Even her nursing license had been filed under a pseudonym. That name, Miriam Clark, was not her real one.
It was a shell. A veil.
And the deeper we dug, the more the shadows pulled back. Until one night, he called me, voice low.
"I found something."
"But you are not going to like it." He sent me a scanned photo. A surveillance image, blurry, from 8 years ago.
A hospital parking lot.
A man in a black suit.
A small child clinging to him.
And beside them, Miriam.
Her face stricken.
Tears streaking her cheeks. But her eyes fierce.
"I thought she was a nurse," I said. "She was," he replied.
"But before that, she was married." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Married to who? A man named Dr. Vincent Hale.
I searched the name.
The screen filled with headlines. Renowned neurologist faces ethics scandal. Whistleblower nurse disappears after exposing child drug trials.
I froze.
The article dated back to the year Elijah was born. It claimed illegal experimentation, falsified records, children used as test subjects. The whistleblower's name was never released. But a single line stood out. Anonymous insider believed to be married to Dr. Hale. My mind raced.
Miriam.
She had not just left medicine. She had fled from hell. And now, she had returned to heal a child again, knowing full well what it might cost her. She had walked back into the fire.
For my son. For me.
And now, that fire was coming. I picked up the phone and called my investigator again.
"Find her," I said.
"Find her before they do." Because I knew now, this was no longer just about healing. It was about justice. It was about love. It was about protecting the one woman brave enough to stand against the kind of darkness that destroys lives quietly. And I, Nathaniel Grant, was not going to let her face that darkness alone. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of cold calls, encrypted messages, and relentless searching. Elijah kept asking where Miriam had gone. Each time, my heart cracked a little more. How could I explain to a 5-year-old that the woman who saved him was now in danger because she dared to care? My investigator finally called. "She is in a safe house outside Providence," he said. "She went willingly with a contact from a women's advocacy group, but there is pressure. Someone is trying to force her silence again."
"Who?" I asked. He hesitated. "The Hale Foundation."
The name punched the breath out of me. Vincent Hale's legacy organization.
Still operational.
Still hiding behind charitable fronts. Still buying silence. Still burying victims. And now, they wanted Miriam to disappear again.
To sign papers. To vanish quietly.
Just like last time. But I would not let it happen. This time, she was not alone. That night, I flew to Providence. No security. No lawyers. Just me. I arrived at a modest 2-story cabin, surrounded by trees and silence. The woman who answered the door had warm eyes and a guarded smile.
"You are here for her," she said. I nodded.
She led me to the back porch.
There she was.
Sitting alone.
Wrapped in a shawl. Eyes closed.
Listening to the wind like it carried answers. "Miriam," I said softly.
She turned. Her breath caught.
"Nathaniel."
She stood stunned.
Tears welled up, but she wiped them quickly. You should not have come.
I had to. She looked away.
They want me to sign something.
A non-disclosure.
They are offering protection, money, silence.
I stepped closer. What do you want? Her voice trembled.
I want to live without fear.
I want to help. I want to heal again.
But I also want you and Elijah safe. They will ruin everything if I fight back.
I touched her hand.
You already fought back. When you chose to love my son. When you chose to stay. When you chose us.
Her lips parted. Soft. Silent. Searching.
But I am not who you think I am, she whispered. You are exactly who I know you are, I replied. You are the woman who gave my son life when everyone else gave up. The woman who taught me that success without compassion is hollow.
The woman I stopped. She looked up at me, waiting. And then I said it. The woman I love.
Her tears fell freely now.
Not from fear, but from release.
From finally being seen.
Known. Cherished.
She fell into my arms, trembling. And for the first time since Elijah's diagnosis, I felt whole. But the moment shattered when a shadow moved beyond the trees. A figure in a dark coat.
Watching. Waiting. I pulled her close.
They found you.
Her eyes widened.
We were no longer safe here.
But I would not run. Not again.
Because this time, I had something stronger than fear.
I had truth. And I had her. I stepped forward.
The figure did not move. Just stood beneath the moonlight, half-shadowed, arms at his sides. I could feel Miriam trembling behind me. I placed my body between her and the silhouette. My voice was low, firm. Who are you? The man took a step closer.
Then another.
I clenched my fists. But he lifted his hands, slowly. I am not here to harm her, he said. His voice was familiar. Measured.
Controlled. Too controlled.
Miriam stepped beside me, her voice breaking.
Vincent. I turned.
Her face had gone pale.
It was him. Her husband.
The man the world had called a genius. The man who had destroyed lives in secret. The man who had once held her heart and shattered it.
He removed his cap.
His hair was grayer now. His face lined with age. But his eyes were the same.
Cold. Calculating.
Miriam, he said, I came to offer you a way out. One last time. I moved to speak, but she held up her hand.
No, she said.
Her voice was different now.
Not soft. Not broken. But calm. Steel beneath silk.
I do not need your way out. I already found mine. Vincent took a slow breath. I am not your enemy, Miriam. I protected you.
You would have been tried. Convicted.
I kept your name out of the records.
You erased my name, she said. You erased my life. My purpose. My truth. He took a step forward. But I stepped in front again.
I will not let you hurt her.
He looked me over.
Recognition flickered in his gaze.
Nathaniel Grant, he said. Of course. The billionaire messiah.
Tell me, how much would you pay to keep your son alive?
I felt my blood rise.
But Miriam laid a hand on my shoulder.
Do not, she whispered.
He wants you to lose control.
Vincent smirked. Come with me, Miriam.
Sign the papers. And I will make sure no one ever speaks your name again.
She stepped forward.
Close enough to meet his eyes.
No, she said.
Her voice shook, but it did not break. I will speak my own name now. Loudly. Proudly. And I will not vanish again just to make you feel safe.
His jaw tightened.
I saw something flash in his eyes, not anger,
Fear.
because she was no longer his to silence. She was no longer afraid. And I, standing beside her, was no longer powerless. Then you leave me no choice, he said, voice low. He turned, melting back into the trees like a shadow fading before dawn.
We stood there, silent.
The only sound, wind in the leaves, and Elijah's voice echoing in my heart. Mimi says I am strong now.
So was she.
And now, I would make the world hear her.
Because the fight was not over. Not yet.
But this time, we would face it together.
Weeks turned into months.
Vincent Hale never resurfaced. But the fear he tried to plant never took root again. Because Miriam stood tall.
Not as a fugitive. Not as a maid.
But as a healer, a woman, and a voice that the world finally heard. With my full support, she filed a public case, not just to clear her name, but to expose the entire truth.
Testimonies came forward. Mothers. Nurses. Patients.
One by one, the silence cracked. The media tried to twist it, of course. But when Elijah walked into that courtroom, on his own 2 feet, and smiled at her, the world understood. Love had won. Miriam was granted her license back. But more than that, she was granted dignity, peace. And she became a symbol for every silenced soul who dared to rise again. As for Elijah, he grew stronger every day. Doctors still could not explain it. But we did not need an explanation.
We had faith.
Miriam and I opened a foundation in her name, not mine. It offered care to children failed by the system. It offered shelter to nurses afraid to speak. It offered light where there had only been shadows. And years later, when Elijah stood on a stage, receiving an award for his own work in medical ethics, he looked at her, sitting in the front row. He said, "This woman is not my nurse. Not just my hero. She is my second mother. The woman who taught me what love really means." My eyes filled with tears.
So did hers.
And in that moment, I understood something that would stay with me forever. Sometimes the most powerful kind of healing does not come from medicine or money or even time, but from the courage to care when everyone else walks away. Miriam taught me that. Elijah reminded me of it. And I, a man once hardened by failure, blinded by numbers, learned that success is not what you build. It is what you save. It is who you stand for. And it is how you love. Moral of the story: no amount of wealth or influence can replace the power of compassion, sacrifice, and truth. It is often those who are overlooked, silenced, or cast aside who carry the greatest light. And when we choose to stand beside them, to lift their voice instead of drowning it, we do not just change one life. We change the world. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know. You are never alone.